Hi, I'm Greg Gutfeld. Tonight, a terror sandwich. To the tease, Bobby. When will the nation's leaders get serious about defeating ISIS? I don't know, but I've got a plan waiting for them when they're ready. It involves karate and knockout drops. Then they call him Trump. Donald Trump. His polls are climbing like a koala on meth. With every shocking soundbite, we discuss his next move. And later, he's back. Accused Army deserter Bowe Bergdahl tells his side of the story. A move to garner sympathy in the face of a possible court-martial? How dare you think such a thing? Let's get started, America. We got plans to make. Radical Islam is like your constantly drunk and abusive neighbor. They're always up to something. They micturate in your bushes. They soil your lawn. They try to mount your dog. And the threats, it's like being stalked by a 7th century heckler. So time to reverse this abusive relationship. Counter radical Islam with radical Americanism. Our scary reply to these rejects. First, let's end the myth of the ISIS warrior. We see evidence of their cruelty, but never their prowess. They hit soft targets, the unarmed and scared. Then they film it to soften up their next prey. These are not brave fighters, just bullies with machetes. What if they were truly challenged by the world's greatest warriors? And before you say, war is what ISIS wants, realize that's simply an argument for inertia and putting off the inevitable. Does that make me a warmonger? Sure. But it also makes me a global survival monger. And to be clear, our military's fine with this. It's their life's work to eliminate evil. Do you ever feel guilty about the postman delivering your mail? Then don't feel guilty about a Marine delivering death. But as a 51-year-old pudgy guy, what can I do? I couldn't take a hill unless it's made of donuts. But every one of us can help end this threat. That's radical Americanism, a forceful return to patriotism, a radical defense of our way of life, and a fearless vocal championing of our freedoms. So what do? The young can enlist or set time aside for self-defense, raising awareness, preaching diligence, hardening the soft targets in our vulnerable lives. For a cream puff like me, you seek out those who fight evil and its propaganda, and then you fund it. After all, we spent decades being told to pointlessly recycle. Imagine if we had devoted the same moral effort to terror. There would have been no 9/11. Soft issues hid the biggest threat in existence. So it's time now for radical Americanism. I'm sorry, Mr. President, that this era couldn't be about rising sea levels. But the crisis of today chooses our leaders, not the reverse. It's radical Islam versus radical Americanism, and the polar bears will have to wait. Period. Let's welcome tonight's guests. Well, he's so tough he gargles with gravel. It's U.S. Army Special Forces member Terry Schappert, the delightfully glib Julie Roginsky, Fox News contributor and Democratic strategist. He's his own boss, but not by choice. Anthony Cumia, host of the Anthony Cumia Show podcast. Her eggnog is all nog and no egg. Joanne Nosuchinsky. And she's all snark and no bite. Katherine Timpf, National Review. All right, Terry, you are a paid killer. I pay you to be a killer. As a non-military person pushing for military action, I will be called a chicken hawk. Can you explain why this theory is wrong?
Two things. A, that was a pretty awesome monologue. Well done.
Thank you.
And two, yeah, you have every right to tell me what to do. We work for you guys. You guys pay the taxes, and I don't. That's always been a false thing when someone says, "Well, you should join the military." No, I joined the military, and we want to do it. This is what we want. It's not. We want to make sure you guys are safe, and so. It's never been a valid argument to say to somebody, well, you haven't been in the military, so you as a citizen or a politician or anything have no say in it. You guys, we work for you. We do work for you.
So that means if I want you to kill Anthony Cumia, you could.
I would do it. We're just happen to be friends.
Yeah,
but you might have to throw some money in for that one because I like him.
It's not going to be that easy.
It's not. I think
that's true.
I think it'd be a cold day in hell before I could kill Anthony Cumia.
I forgot that Anthony Cumia's guns have guns.
Yeah, dude, he's got a lot of guns.
Before I move on, Terry, I want to ask you a question. How come there is no footage of ISIS actually fighting?
They're really not good fighters, actually. Listen, there's the thing about ISIS. They crucify 10-year-old boys. if we couldn't get behind that 2 years ago, then America kind of sucks.
Yeah.
So, that's that. And as far as their fighting goes, they have not been challenged. They have beaten the Iraqi military, which fled for the most part, and that's something we can talk about because I spent a lot of time over there. But no, they haven't been met with the same, relentless violence that we want to visit on them. So no, they're bullies, man. They are bullies. And Gitmo is not the greatest recruiting thing for ISIS. Success is their greatest recruiting thing. Success. They are successful, and wildly so.
Julie, are you disgusted being around all these warmongers?
No, I'm actually very pleased about the hit you're about to take out on somebody, because I don't know what's going on here, but it's like a secret hit side field.
We were talking before you showed up.
I'm a little, I hope, like when you don't know who the hit's out on, it's probably out on you, and I kind of hope that's not the case. No, I'm actually happy to be among these warmongers. I cannot wait to watch you enlist or storm a hill of donuts or whatever.
But that's my point. I don't have to.
No, you don't.
I don't have to, because that's part of this whole relationship of the United States government and the military. It's like, I like my mail getting delivered, but I don't have to be a postman
I don't
either.
like my mail getting delivered.
You don't?
I actually never check my mailbox.
You probably get hate mail from viewers of Fox News.
Once in a while, or like
Yeah.
every day. Yes, that's true.
So you're okay with everything we've said so far? That's
Please
great.
as punch.
Okay. I was kind of hoping for a little fireworks, Anthony. Speaking of, you've been preparing for ISIS since the 1980s.
Oh, my God. I was ahead of the curve, everybody.
Do you see this getting better or worse? And what do you think has to be done?
Well, what has to be done is leadership. I think we need a strong leader in this country, which we absolutely haven't had in years and years. A revolution needs to take place in this country. And since really that old school bloody revolution we just can't do it in this day and age, Donald Trump.
Yes.
We need a lunatic in there. No, and by the way, thank you, because the whole liberal ideology over the past 8 years or so has made Donald Trump.
You're
made
welcome.
him.
You're welcome.
You built him.
You're welcome.
And we need that type of just grabbing the steering wheel and cutting it to the left at 80 miles an hour.
To the left is
to
not the
fix
right word.
something.
You know what it is? You're talking about
right.
the pendulum swing. That
Yeah.
we've gone so far into this direction of progressive, let's hug
Exactly.
everybody. Now we got to pull it back.
Well, yeah, under Obama, I think we have lost patriotism. We are not patriots anymore because we are apologists. America is the one who is doing wrong. We are the evil ones when,
always.
We can't condemn these other countries. We're apologizing to them.
I guess everybody's unhappy with both sides. So, of course, Donald Trump he walks in, it's perfect storm for him.
You want your crazy uncle in the nuclear codes? You want the nuclear?
Oh no! By the way, I'm not
all
saying.
right.
Oh no, I'm not saying he's even my guy for this election. I will tell you. I'll tell you right now, though. I will vote for anybody before I vote for Hillary Clinton.
I got to bring Kat into this now that we've moved from ISIS to Trump.
Snark with no bite.
What is your solution? Sitting over there in your secret perch.
Well, I've never been to war. I wouldn't go to war, but I do use the American flag emoji on every single one of my text messages, even when it does not make sense. So I'm doing my part. I think we need to make sure we don't make ISIS feel too cool by the way we talk about them. We need to call them losers. If you join ISIS, ew, you're not cool. And then, crush them.
Well, okay, that's the other problem here.
Yeah, they're not masterminds. They're losers.
But the longer we do nothing, the longer their propaganda persists. And they need one. I know that I'm not a military mind, and you're the smart guy here on this. I believe.
No, I'm not.
I believe that all it takes is one humiliating loss, and that's it.
They haven't really had that. And something else, too. I laugh over and over again when I keep hearing all these smart, educated non-Islamics telling Islamics that what they're doing is non-Islamic. Al-Baghdadi, who is running ISIS, has a degree, a PhD in Islamic studies from the University of Baghdad. I think he's more qualified to talk about Islam than Hillary Clinton, Piers Morgan, and all these other idiots that are saying it's not Islam. And the thing is, too, I don't even care if it is Islam or not. We have to open their bellies to the sky and stick an ace of spades on their dead face that says in Arabic, it's only going to get worse.
Yep.
Because then you take away the cool thing, like Kat said, because to them it's a video game. They get to be Caligula, they get to rape, they get to kill. It's like not real.
Julie, the climate change final paper was drafted today in Paris, and I want to read off a list.
Congratulations.
I want to read off a list of the people who care.
Keep going.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
That's it.
And
that's the
Steve.
problem. That's the problem. Your side is obsessed with things that are essentially not as important as the death of our country.
I think my side kind of feels that you could chew gum and walk at the same time, right? You could probably do both. I am not particularly happy with how this president's handled ISIS and Syria to begin with, even before ISIS, the rise of ISIS. But I think you could pretty much do both. I'm not sure he's done both well.
Yes.
But I think you're probably capable of taking care of some climate change issues while also hopefully taking care of ISIS. My question here is, though, once we go in and kick ISIS's butt, then what?
Well, that's just okay. So think it further down the line. Here's what we're not going to do, and we have been doing and spent a lot of blood and time doing. We're not going to rebuild them. That's not it.
Don't they just come back then?
Sure. By the way, that's the other thing too. Roaches always come back, even when you clean up. So the thing is, you just got to be ready in a posture where when they come, you hit them so hard. And by the way, they come back less the more you kick their butt. And so I understand what you're saying. This isn't, by the way, going to get, this can't be wrapped up in a nice bow where it's like, in about 5 years, we're going to be cool with this. This is not going to stop. It is not going to stop. But it ain't going to get better if we sit back and go, well, we can't really stop.
Go ahead.
And might I add, this is where Anthony Cumia comes in, because we have been successful at making our targets harder, which means now their strategy is only soft targets, which means the arming of society.
There it is. Civilians out there
Yes.
Big fan
helping out. You know what's worse, though? Yeah, soft targets walking around the city. I've noticed a lot of security, military is out there, police. And we're supposed to lead our lives. Everyone just says, lead your life like you normally would. I'm not as much afraid of being a victim of terror out there as I am being accused of being a terrorist. I walk around with a backpack now, and I'm just looking like, oh, does this look suspicious?
Yeah, especially because you have bombs in there.
Well, maybe not bombs.
Truth bombs. What's up?
Truth bombs. Thank you, Joe.
All right. I don't know. I think the other option, too, is to let him have an Islamic State. It's like I call it the sandcastle theory. Let them build the sandcastle.
I just keep them where they are.
And then kick it over. Like, you can't kick a sandcastle over until it's built.
Don't they already have one? It's called our great ally, Saudi Arabia. Like, lest we forget, there's already an Islamic State there, and we happen to be funding it, and it's called the Saudis. We're in turn funding them.
By the way,
I'm
no,
not
it's
Not wrong. All right, they're yelling at me. Coming up, Donald Trump had quite a week. We'll talk about that next. You may have not heard this yet, but Donald Trump said something controversial this week.
No.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what the hell is going on.
But the story kind of fell under the radar.
Donald Trump's proposal to put a pause on entry by Muslims into the United States.
Donald Trump versus America.
It's really turned into a deeply ethnic cleansing kind of logic.
The mainstream is recoiling in disgust and dismay. But Republican primary voters, they are a different breed of cat.
He's gaining support. These aren't chickens that are saying they want to support him in the election. It's voters. It's Republican voters.
Donald Trump separating himself even further from Muslims worldwide.
It's very much deja vu all over again.
It's pretty dumb.
So is Trump onto something, or is he just on something? All right. I have a theory. I know everybody here has a Trump theory, so we're going to go around. Right. My Trump theory, I'm going to go to you first, Anthony. I believe that he is playing Name That Tune with politics. So it's like, instead of saying, let's focus on a vetting system that currently allows 20 to 40 million people in return visits, he says, all Muslims. So he names the issue in 2 words. He does that, like, instead of talking about we need to reinforce our borders, the immigration system, he says, build a wall. So he has, his thing is Name That Tune, but he figures out, he says, I'm only going to use 3 words. People, it's China. I make deals. It's like he doesn't do the whole thing.
I could fix that problem in 2 words.
Exactly.
Fix that problem.
Fix that problem. And he does it.
That's awesome.
I mean, but then what happens is the next step is a modification of the bombast. So he says, you got to ban all Muslims, and then all of a sudden his supporters go, no, he was talking about people on a certain list. It's not all Muslims. It's not America. So the modification begins.
Walk it back is what they say these days.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
He's walking that one
but
back.
He doesn't ever walk anything back.
No, he doesn't.
No.
And that's why he's successful, I think, actually.
But he understands, and I think he's learning some of this as he goes along, the longer he's in the race. He understands that if he says outrageous things, his poll numbers go up, and the stories all become Donald Trump.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to spend money on his election. People will put him on the news. He will be on the forefront. And then everyone else has to react to Donald Trump.
Because we're the meth addicts. We keep sucking this up. He says something as opposed to us saying, hey, let's see what Ted Cruz is saying, or poor Lindsey Graham was like begging for attention.
Yeah.
He's like, look at the crazy. I think my theory is he's like, remember Kramer and Seinfeld when he drove the car and he's like, I'm going to see how far I can go until I run out of gas. Kept going and going and going. That's him.
It may go all the way. It may go all the way.
The reality is, though, he is saying things that lots of Americans like hearing.
He's the id.
Poll numbers are way up. And what it is, I really think, is the media has actually created Donald Trump's success. They say that he's fear-mongering, but truthfully, the media does a lot of it. We're now hearing about ISIS now has a passport machine, so they can very easily come into the United States with fake passports. So Donald Trump is saying, I'm going to protect you. He is quelling the fears in this country. So people like hearing that. And so long as we keep having, this sort of divide between the media and Trump, he's going to continue to do very well.
I agree with you. I also think, Kat, I think a lot of it is our responsibility. I mean, our fault in kind of shortchanging other candidates. In a weird way, I liken my role as a prison chef who is then surprised that the inmates are eating the meals.
Yeah, you guys like this.
But it's the only meal I'm serving.
Exactly.
And I'm wondering, how far do you see this going?
All the way.
Yeah.
I think it's never going to end. He's the Kim Kardashian of presidential candidates. No matter what he says, it just goes everywhere. It's all we all talk about. It's all anybody talks about. And his poll numbers, I bet that he has even more support than the poll numbers say. Because I think a lot of people, after comments like this, someone calls him on the phone and says, hey, do you support Donald Trump? They're gonna maybe be like, I don't want this person to think I'm a racist. So they might say no, but then vote for him.
Yeah, that's the thing about.
I actually agree with that.
The online surveys might be underreporting.
So
Terry,
true.
you where are you? I know that you're you're a very conservative guy.
About some things, about a lot of social stuff. I don't care what you do.
Do you see him as conservative?
Oh my God, he's the anti-conservative. Actually, that's why it's so funny and interesting and kind of sad, I guess, to see him doing so well as a Republican, because he's anything but that. That just shows how I think even fooled within the conservative community it is, where they're actually latching on to him and thinking he's the guy. It's because, though, like you said, everybody kind of touched on this, is that we're kind of looking for a dude to go F you. And you know what? I'm sorry, we're not Islamophobic in the U.S. We are Islamo-fatigued. We're tired of them. And when I say them, the ones who are attacking us and hurting us, I watched that picture of that couple coming into this country, welcomed by us with open arms, and they already knew then that they were going to do what they did. And everybody sitting at the dinner table goes, and then Trump says something like, get them all out. And that does resonate with people. And, it doesn't mean we're a bunch of I'm not even going to use that word. It doesn't mean we're a bunch of bigots. People are just sick of this crap. And it was with Mexican illegal immigrants coming in and shooting people in the head or doing stuff. We have visceral reactions to this stuff, and then we sort of think about it. He has the visceral reaction and just says it, and people just touch it and go, "Yeah, man, I feel that way." Now, are they really going to go with that?
I agree with you on that. The only problem I have is I'm very sick and tired of if you don't support everything he does, you are establishment.
Yeah, it's crazy.
The guy Trump just came out in favor of ethanol.
Yeah.
I mean, how much more establishment can you get?
And there's people that'll attack you they'll call you a cuck-servative or something like that. I'm like, what am I reading here, man?
Wait, let's back up. He lives in a gold-plated tower in New York City.
Yeah.
He's not living in the middle of the heartland here.
He's not one of us.
Yeah, he's
not one of us.
I like to think he's
not like Hillary.
I like to think I'm one of him.
I'm not pretending
He may not be one of us, but everybody one day wants to be like him.
And by the way, and by him being so unashamedly proud and almost boastful of that, people are like, man, he's not sitting there trying to hide his money and go on for the people. He's like, I'm fabulously rich.
The opposite of Romney.
Yep, exactly.
Up next, special guest Maajid Nawaz and his moderate Muslim mission to combat extremism. Try saying moderate Muslim mission 5 times fast, I dare you. And later, how low can Bowe go? New developments in the Bergdahl case. We'll be right back. So here's what we learned about the San Bernardino terror attack. The FBI is looking into whether Saeed Farouk was plotting an attack back in 2012 with his neighbor, seen there. Also, we now know when Farouk and his wife were radicalized. Here's FBI Director James Comey.
They were actually radicalized before they started courting or dating each other online. And online, as early as the end of 2013, they were talking to each other about jihad and martyrdom before they became engaged.
2013 seems like a long time for them to have stayed off law enforcement's radar. Should we have caught this? Joining me now is Maajid Nawaz, co-founder and chairman of Quilliam, a counter-extremism organization, and co-author of Islam and the Future of Tolerance. As a young Muslim in the UK, Maajid spent more than a decade leading a global Islamist group that advocated the return of a caliphate. Which leads to my first question. How did you de-radicalize yourself? And shouldn't there be schools just dedicated to that?
Perhaps. Well, it's a pleasure being on your show. I spent 5 years as an amnesty-adopted political prisoner in Egypt for attempting to incite against the Egyptian regime. And during my time in prison, I read a lot of English literature, classical Islamic books. I debated a lot with jihadist convicts and Islamist prisoners, and de-radicalized myself over the course of those 5 years when I came to the conclusion, drawing on George Orwell's Animal Farm, that the pigs, if they ever took over the farm, would, or the lunatics, if they ever took over the asylum, would be running hell on earth. And so I called this in 2007, when I left the group, that if this caliphate were ever to be established, it would be a nightmare on earth. And, you know, history tells us now with the creation of ISIS, so-called caliphate, that that's something I called early, and I'm thankful that I left the movement when I did.
You know, you talk about passivity. You have an article today in the Wall Street Journal, an excellent article. If anybody hasn't read it, they should, where you talk about President Obama's response. You also talk about the Voldemort effect. Can you explain this?
Yes, again, I read all the Harry Potter books in prison, and actually I drew on that analogy in an Egyptian prison with jihadists all around me. I was reading Harry Potter. But I drew an analogy in the Wall Street Journal today, and in there, the bad guy in J.K. Rowling's books is known as Voldemort, and everyone's so scared of Voldemort, petrified of Voldemort, that they cannot name him. And so instead, two things happen. They refer to Voldemort as he who must not be named, and the second thing is that they deny that he who must not be named even exists. And so I drew on that analogy to say that what happens when you can't name something and deny it even exists is it only increases the hysteria and increases the public fear. And of course, some of the outrageous reaction we've been seeing from people like Donald Trump saying completely outlandish things is because we haven't been talking sensibly about this subject. President Obama has suffered from this Voldemort effect. They aren't even able to name Islamist extremism. And when that happens, you get people like Trump basically shooting into the wind, coming out with all sorts of statements, because there hasn't up until now been a sensible conversation around this. And so I think we've got to break that taboo. We've got to be able to name and talk about Islamist extremism in a sensible way.
You know, you talk about the aim of a counterinsurgency program, and you talk about kind of countering the propaganda victories that ISIS has had. And I'm obsessed with how that's done. And my belief is that you need a humiliating victory, a humiliating defeat of ISIS. But what is the compelling narratives that we need to fight ISIS's propaganda?
Well, first of all, this isn't a traditional war. When the Pope said after the France attacks that we're in a piecemeal World War III, I respectfully disagree. I think this is a global jihadist insurgency. And the way to fight insurgencies is we've got to be able to undermine the level of significant enough support that they enjoy among those they're trying to recruit from, which is Muslim communities. Now, in the Wall Street Journal article that you've just referred to, I cite statistics. Survey after survey tells us that not a majority of Muslims support ISIS, but a significant number of Muslims do. And that significant minority is where they're drawing their recruits from. It's why 6,000 have gone to join them from who have been born and raised in Europe. So that's troubling. So the first thing we have to do is recognize it as an insurgency and undermine the support they have within the communities they seek to recruit from. And you're right, we also have to deliver them defeating blows, crushing blows, because part of their success is their ability to portray that they are winning. And of course, when you declare a caliphate and say God's on your side, and then you're not defeated, it looks to the uninitiated that God is on your side. So we've got to prove to the world that God isn't on their side, can never be, will never be, by destroying them on the battlefield. And unfortunately, that hasn't been happening every step of the way. President Obama has been behind on this agenda.
One last real quick question. What do you tell people who are afraid of reporting suspicious activity for fear of being called racist or bigoted?
I think the neighbors of the San Bernardino attackers, those terrorists, their neighbors were suspicious and they didn't report them because they feared that they would be called racist. And what I've said in another column I wrote about that is that their reasons for being suspicious were correct and their reasons for not reporting them, i.e., fear of being racist, were incorrect. Terrorists don't have a racial profile, and terrorists don't have even a religious profile. The France attackers, the woman that was involved there, was pictured in a bikini, whereas this attacker in San Bernardino was in a face veil. So they can look very religious and they can look very secular. But they should have reported the suspicious behavior. I think the sort of thing that does work at airports and in town centres like this is suspicious behavior. When that raises the alarm, we mustn't shy away from supporting it. But that's not the same as racial profiling and religious profiling.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Maajid. Great stuff. Your articles are always really amazing, and everybody should pick up your book with Sam Harris. It's also excellent. All right, coming up, the military has now allowed all U.S. combat positions to be open to women, but a new survey shows U.S. Special Op forces don't like that idea. That's next. Don't leave us. Can women handle the most dangerous jobs in the military? And is even posing that question sexist? And is even posing a question about that question sexist? Earlier this month, Defense Secretary Ash Carter announced all military jobs would be open to women, including combat positions. However, in a survey conducted by the RAND Corporation, who are they? More than 7,000 members of America's Special Ops forces unanimously objected to having women do their jobs. They say allowing women to serve as Navy SEALs, Army, Delta, or other commando units could hurt their effectiveness and lower the standards. Lack of physical strength and mental toughness were the main reasons given. In other words, women have no place on their teams. Or in Anthony Cumia's words, they should stay in the kitchen wearing nothing but French-made outfits, their feet bound so tightly that each step is excruciatingly painful. Those were his words, not mine, America. All right, I was going to go to you first, Terry, because you're in the military, but I'm going to go to Anthony. Where do you stand on this issue?
I think we already know.
No, I think there are physical differences between men and women. Wow, I'm breaking apart some wall here. If somebody can do the job, physically and mentally do the job, then fine. But there are just innate physical differences between men and women where there are some positions that should not be open to women. It's just the way it is. And yeah, there's a crossover where certain men wouldn't be able to do certain things, certain women can do certain things. But when you look at the overall average, it's just, we see it in the fire department. A lot of times they lower the standards to get women involved, and then you realize it was a big mistake.
Yeah, then you have to buy more smoke alarms. It's all organized by the smoke alarm companies. Julie, what's more important, equality or safety? You can only choose one. Well,
I say this as somebody who couldn't run from here to Starbucks without passing out, so clearly I'm completely SEAL material. I actually cannot believe I agree with you, and I'm going to be thrown out of the Democratic Party for saying this, but if you can do the job, you should be able to do the job. I am very skeptical that women are physically as strong as Navy SEAL men are. Maybe there's a freak nature out there who is, and she should be allowed to do the job.
Are you calling strong women freaks?
I'm calling strong women who are stronger than me freaks because I've lifted. Look at these guns. I've tried to go for Michelle Obama guns, working out, it never happens. So I don't know why. But yeah, I think if you could do the job, you should do the job. I have a really hard time believing that there are women out there who can compete with Navy SEAls or Green Berets.
I think there can be, Terry. There can. I'm trying to engineer some sort of debate. Yeah. I think there can be.
No, here's we've talked about this on your show before, and look, there is going to be a small percentage of gals. I like that word, gals.
Yes.
Gals who can actually do it, that are diesel, in shape. There's not a lot. The stuff we got to do is really, really bone crushing. But there are going to be some. And I think about the mental toughness of women. I think that's a false thing, too. Women can be there's a lot of weak. The mental toughness isn't the.
Yeah, I mean, Bergdahl.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
was a man.
When I hear people here's the real reason why, and this is maybe even why the guys that are interviewed, like I'm in the Green Berets, the reason these guys gave, that's the reason they gave. The real reason is this. it's the sexual tension. Guys and girls have sex. And
really?
Weird. And
That's the birds and the bees
I know
talk.
that was also my problem with the openly gay guys in the military. You'd be surprised how many people in the military, we really don't care about anyone's sexuality, as long as it doesn't affect two things. I'm a Green Beret leader. My team's lethality and my team's survivability. Anything that distracts from that, I get rid of it. And in this case, any kind of open sexuality, whether it's gay or straight, is going to fragment the team. And I'm sorry, I got a lot more important crap to worry about.
You ever see Starship Troopers, the movie?
that was the Utopia.
They're showering together.
That was my favorite
They're just like,
scene.
hey, they're all getting on each other. Hey, what do you do?
That's like Aliens. Hey, Vasquez.
Right, hey, Vasquez.
Yeah, what about you? Yeah.
All right, enough of this weird trivia. I got to get Kat and Joanne in here. First, you, Kat, thoughts?
So if I tried to be a Navy SEAL, boys would like me there?
Yes.
And I could maybe get a husband?
You could so do well there.
I would crush it. I'm very strong. I think that's really interesting because I thought the exact same thing. I'd love to say that as long as you pass the same physical tests, I think that's the officially appropriate answer.
Right.
But when you do think about what it would be like to add a woman to that mix, you do kind of wonder about what Terry's talking about. And the response was so overwhelming by people that actually know what that's like. I don't know what that's like. I don't know what it's like to have to do anything physical. So you got to kind of at least think about it. But my official answer is as long as they can pass the same tests as me.
Well, and
if they lower the standards, that's the problem, Joanne.
That is definitely the problem. And who wants this more, politicians or women who want to serve their country? If I am dedicated to serving my country and doing it well, I will take any position that I'm assigned. And if they think that's where I'm going to thrive in it, then that's what I'll do.
Can you wait tables?
Really well.
Yes, exactly.
Really
I'm
well.
with no. Look, if a woman wants to enlist and she can do it, fine. That's you know. But there are biological inevitabilities. But they will have, as long as they keep the standards the same. I'm going to keep doing this.
But they never do that.
They never do.
Always
they?
lower them because somebody complains.
It's never happened.
There isn't enough.
We got to move. We got to go. We got 2 more segments coming up. Bowe Bergdahl tells the world he thought he was Jason Bourne. Seems like Jason Alexander to me. Am I right, America?
Well,
John Waters stops by to discuss his one-man Christmas show. Yeah. So why'd you go, Bowe? We'd love to know. You remember Bowe Bergdahl, that adorable chap that walked off his army base in Afghanistan back in 2009, got captured by the Taliban? Last year, of course, was freed in exchange for 5 Gitmo prisoners. Look at him. Bergdahl is now telling his side of the story in the 2nd season of the Serial podcast, that NPR show that spent most of last year cooing over a dude who killed his girlfriend. So here's Bowe and his tale of woe.
What I was seeing from my first unit all the way up into Afghanistan, all I was seeing was basically leadership failure. I was fully confident that when somebody actually took a look at the situation and when people started investigating the situation, that people would understand that I was right. What suddenly, it really starts to sink in that I really did something bad. Well, not bad, but I really did something serious.
No, maybe stick with bad, Bowe. But hey, at least you didn't compare yourself to some fictional action hero, right, Bowe?
Doing what I did was me saying I am like, I don't know, Jason Bourne. I had this fantastic idea that I was going to prove to the world that, I was the real thing.
You know what I'm thinking? Let me go to Kat. How is he different than your hero, Ed Snowden, a whistleblower who defied the chain of command, and he inadvertently put lives at risk and helped the enemy?
Because he's lying. He ran because he was scared. It's kind of like how if someone gets caught cheating, they first just say, no, I didn't do it. And then the story gets more and more elaborate as time goes on. Like, yeah, no, I was only with her because I was talking to her about how to make you happier or something like that. It gets more and more elaborate and twisted. That's what he's doing. He's a liar. That's how it's different. He's just a horrible man and a liar and weak and a coward, and I can't stand seeing his face.
Wow. She's actually harder on him than maybe you will be, Terry.
I like Kat. She's nice. Kat's my friend.
What do we do with Bowe?
I'm not sure. I think he's got to be crushed for being a deserter. I mean, we lost guys looking for him. I know Special Forces guys, some of my guys were in country that time. They had to rotate. They were there for a long time, extra, looking for this cat. And guys got killed. He knew it. And here's another thing. Why did our administration trade him for 5 guys and then say, you know, we never leave a guy behind? And you go ahead and just leave those guys out there on Benghazi. You don't get to have it both ways. Bring him, you know, it's good we got him back. And guess what? Now put him in jail for the rest of his life.
Julie, you seem like somebody who likes the Serial podcast.
I actually do. Thanks for asking.
What is with so they go? Why is it that they would run this, but they wouldn't run anything that's like actually pro-military?
Oh, I don't know. Because it's NPR, Greg. Come on. I actually agree with everything you just said. I think that this guy should absolutely be in jail for however long he has to be in jail for. You don't leave anybody behind. I firmly believe that as well. Benghazi is a different analogy to me. It's not that he purposely left them behind. This guy would have purposely been left behind if we didn't try to get him out. And so, but I do think he deserves all the punishment he's going to get. And for people who say, well, he already served his time by being stuck in a Taliban prison for X amount of years, I really don't care. It's too bad. That's the penalty you have for deserting and being an idiot.
Joanne,
done.
Was this just an attempt to gain sympathy because he might be court-martialed?
Oh, for sure. And it's glorifying this whole scenario, which we shouldn't be doing. He wanted to serve with honor, then he should accept punishment with humility.
That's true.
Nice.
Anthony, haven't we all wanted to be Jason Bourne?
Please, put a magazine in the toaster and knock the gas line off and it bursts into flame.
I think you would rather be Jason from Friday the 13th.
Or that.
Yes.
Either one. That the deal for the Taliban guys. It was like when I used to play Monopoly with my sister and I could talk her into trading me Boardwalk and Park Place for Baltic and Mediterranean. Like, that's how dumb this deal was.
Yeah.
And, yes, he should, you know, that old firing squad, bring that back.
Right.
They used to do that.
Yep.
They used to do that.
Some very strong words from Mr. Cumia. Always involving a gun, though. Up next, I can't wait. Legendary director John Waters is finally here. He's got a new Christmas show. If you leave now, you're the real Grinch. I've been equal parts delighted and horrified by some of my next guest's cult films like Desperate Living, Pink Flamingos, Hairspray, Female Trouble. I believe I've seen every one of his films, sometimes 4 times in a row while taking a bath. I'm honored to have him on the program for the first time, filmmaker and holiday expert John Waters, who is now starring in the one-man show, A John Waters Christmas, which leads one to wonder, what exactly is a John Waters Christmas?
Well, the John Waters Massacre, I call it, in 3D this year, right?
Yep. What's in it?
Well, everything. I talk about fashion, about when you're going home for Christmas, it can be terrible. So it's for people that love Christmas, people that hate it. I tell people, pass out verbal abuse whistles to your family. If anybody says anything bad, just blow the whistle. Eventually, people will laugh.
It's a great
you got
idea.
to figure a way to get through it.
Yeah. Now, this show is going on right now. It's the 9th performance.
I'm on like 12 or 13 out of 19.
Yeah. And where can people see it?
All over the country. Let me see. I mean, do I have to name all the cities? Oh,
No.
God, like, certainly in every city that you can. There's 19 cities. Pretty much, if it's a major city, I'm coming there.
Now, you recently defended Christmas after some remarks the Pope had made.
Yeah.
Can you explain what happened?
What did he say about Christmas?
I think he always married that stuff to capitalism.
Oh, yeah.
The idea of
I
consumption.
want Santa Claus to turn the 2 C's of Chanel into Christmas and cash. You know, basically keeps the economy going. I'm not against the commercialism of Christmas because I think it's kind of funny. But you can give people the best presents in the world that cost $0.25. It's how much time you spent. It's not.
What would cost $0.25?
Well, like I collect porn versions of literature, like the Rapes of Wrath, and somebody gave me From Here to Maternity.
Oh, wow.
And that was really a good one, I thought.
That was a good one. You can find those at thrift shops, I imagine. You can find a lot of things there. Can I ask you, in this current climate, that when you're looking at the way the campuses are and safe spaces, could your movies survive in this era? I mean, how do you...
Yeah, they could. Because I do my show at colleges all the time, and nobody gets mad at anything I say anymore because I'm not mean, and I don't know why. I can make racial jokes, I can make sexual jokes, I can make anything, and nobody seems to really get mad anymore because I'm not mean.
And you also have, you do have a bubble of immunity, don't you?
I think I'm weirdly am politically correct, even though I make fun of it completely the whole time.
But I would say that the ultimate rebel these days on campus would have to be a young Republican, right?
Or no, the most rebellious thing you can do is if you're young is to not have a phone.
Yes.
Yeah, or to have a landline. That is
I immediately
really,
don't trust you.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I really think a kid says, I don't have a phone, I don't want one. I think, whoa, a rebel here. This is a great kid.
So I have one more question, because you have a history of, you write about dark characters. You worked in a prison. You taught in a prison.
Yeah.
In this last month, we've seen a lot of bad things happening, a lot of terror attacks. What does it take to stop what we're seeing?
Oh, God, that's a really complicated question.
Yeah.
I'm for terror as humor. In the old days, Act Up and the Yippies, everything, they used terror to humiliate the enemies by embarrassing them. I'm for that.
Yeah.
My films were terrorism against the tyranny of good taste. But how to stop this? It's tough, because terrorism is the only way to fight if you have no power, and you can never protect yourself. That's why it works. So, but if you stay home, if you change your life, they won, and then you stay home and an airplane crashes into your house. There's no way to
Yeah,
get
you never know
around
how
it.
it's going to happen.
Yeah, you really don't know.
Yeah, you can slip on a bathtub.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
On
how
a
I'm going to go.
bathtub.
On a bathtub.
In a bathtub.
In a bathtub, on a bathtub.
Well, you
knew
can
what I meant.
slip on a bathtub if you're very large. I guess.
Yes.
Trip on a bathtub.
If you're, ample woman or something.
My favorite kind of woman.
You can't say the word fat anymore, so it's ample.
You can say
Ample.
it.
Yeah.
Plus size.
Yeah.
You could say plus size.
I love fat.
All right. Thank you, John. A pleasure. And when you come back, you got to come back for the whole show. We'll talk about all sorts of stuff.
All righty.
Thanks to Anthony Cumia, Julie Roginsky, Terry Schappert, Maajid Nawaz, Joanne Nosuchinsky, and Katherine Timpf. I'm Greg Gutfeld, and I love you, America. I do.